Hey, it's L Chukwumah, Space and Equity. We're all about increasing assets and creating new space. First time, second time on the show, our Chief Operating Officer of Space and Equity, Chiedu Chukwumah, on the show with us. We're going to talk about several things, but beforehand, you know I got to plug Field of the Boardroom. So we've got Field of the Boardroom, President's Day weekend. Go to the website, register, come, be a part of it. Be there or be square. You can go at spaceequitycorp.com, register. Field of the Boardroom has its own link. You go through the process. Everything you need concerning the event is there. Your time will be rewarded. Your presence will be rewarded with revenue, with relationships, and just great camaraderie. So be there. We'll see you. Chiedu. Pleasure to have you, brother. You now are Mr. Fort Worth.
Yes, sir.
Getting it done for Space and Equity.
Yes, sir.
All right. So what are we talking about today? You came here. You got the plan. What are we talking about today?
Man, we're going to go over a couple of the letters of the alphabet.
Okay. So we are on the Decoding Banking Series. Decoding banking terms. So ask me the question. I'm going to give you the response, the real response.
All right. So tell us a little bit about joint and several.
Joint and several. Remember, when you are in a commercial loan, your entity is the borrower. Your entity has a primary source of repayment, cash flow from operations, rents from the tenant. But somebody has to sponsor that entity. If things don't go well, who's going to pay it? So when you have a joint and several relationship as a guarantor, what that means is Brock and Jay are guaranteeing loan XYZ to take their business from just being the Texas level through nationwide. They need to get capital. They're going to put up some rental properties as assets, as collateral, but they both are going to guarantee the loan. With joint and several, what you're saying is that Brock and Jay are jointly responsible for payment if the primary source of payment doesn't work, and if after we liquidate the collateral, we still are owed money, they're responsible to pay. However, if Jay dies or if Jay don't pay, Brock, you are responsible solely. So Brock can't say that, hey, we got that $1 million loan together through the business, and so since it was two sponsors, Jay is responsible for $500,000, I'm responsible for $500,000. No, Brock. Jay and Brock are responsible for $1 million. Jay is responsible for $1 million. Brock is responsible for $1 million. Joint and several means that you're jointly responsible and you're individually responsible for the debt in the case of repayment.
So you're saying that if Jay and Brock are at an 80-20 split, Jay 80, Brock 20, and something goes wrong, Brock is still 100% liable.
So this is where sophisticated borrowers can negotiate on the front end. If nothing is said, heck yeah. However, if you negotiate that the way we're going to break down this guarantee is going to be in pieces. That means that 4/5 of the guarantee lies on Jay's head, and then 1/5 of the guarantee lies on Brock's head. You can break that down and agree, and sometimes the bank will agree to, but most of the time, what joint and several means, because sometimes there's 10 guarantors. We're all responsible together, and we're all individually responsible. That's the law, the letter of it, and then you can negotiate otherwise.
Interesting. All right. Moving on to K, we got kiting.
Kiting. All right. So July 2004, I was a young banker, 23 years old, and I was a customer service, a personal banker, right? This was the days where we were still writing checks. Online banking was relatively brand new. And this term that banks use, Check 21, just came about. It's relatively new. So Check 21, what that meant was it used to be, if you wrote your bank is Wells Fargo in California, you wrote a check in California to somebody in Ohio, that physical check had to go all the way to Ohio to get cleared. Smart people or diabolical people, however you want to categorize them, said, oh, there's float time. There's like 8 days before that check arrives and clears. I'm gonna write this check without having the money in there. Mm-hmm. And then by the time the check get there, I should have the money in there. That's kiting. You don't have the money. Or sometimes people would kite like they would write a check off of one account with one bank, write to another bank knowing the money ain't there, and that's kiting. Well, Check 21 said, we ain't gonna wait 8 days. We're gonna take a copy of that check, and that's an official copy, and we can clear the check faster. So it reduced kiting it tremendously. So what's new age kiting? So new age kiting is this. I got my mortgage at Truist Bank. I got my checking account at USAA. I go to Truist Bank's online banking to pay my mortgage on Monday. I don't get paid to Friday, but I know Truist takes like 3 days to actually even process it. And then I know my direct deposit hits on Thursday. So if I tell Truist they can debit or ACH my account on Monday and I didn't have the money in there, I'm technically kiting because I should have the money. It's like if you came to me and said, you owe me $300 cash money, and you give me a note saying that $300 is gonna be in your hand magically on Friday. Don't even worry. Right now, it's just a piece of paper. I'd be like, hell no, I want my money. The same thing with the bank institutions. They want their money. So you're kiting when on Monday you tell Truist they can debit your USAA account and the money ain't there. That's kiting. People do it all the time. It's not right. And get caught. That transaction is going to get turned around. Sometimes the bank will just reject the transaction altogether. Sometimes they'll pay it and charge you a fee. But just know you are kiting. You should have the money in hand when you authorize payment, because I want my money real. The bank wants their money real and they deserve their money real. What we got next?
We got a lien.
All right, lien has such a negative connotation because I put a lien on something. That's bad. But what a lien is, saying this house, right? I'm proud to say we bought this house for $472,000, and because of all this inflation, it's worth like $600,000, maybe even more. We'll see. Anyways, so when we bought the house, though, we got a first mortgage lien with Truist, now bank. All right, so we owe them $333,000, something like that, right? They have a first lien mortgage for the original mortgage amount, which I can't remember what that was when we started. Let's call it $380,000 or something. So they have a lien for $380,000. Now that we've paid it down to $333,000. But what they're saying is that, hey, Obi and Letitia Revocable Trust owns this piece of real estate, but they don't own it all the way because they owe us some money. We got a first lien mortgage. If they were to sell this, we got our money first. And then we got a home equity line on it. So we got a home equity line with B1 Bank for like $52,000. So then B1 would say, hey, they also got to pay us before they sell this house. So they have a second lien position, or junior mortgage, subordinate mortgage. We have a junior mortgage or second lien on our HELOC with B1 Bank. So what that says is if we were to sell the house to Velasco, we say, Velasco, hey, we agree. He's like, okay, I'll pay you $600,000 for the house. Because Truist Bank has a first lien, before we can get any money, Truist got to get their $333 paid off, right? So now we have $267 left to work with. And then B1 Bank has to get their HELOC paid off. We owe about $50,000 on the HELOC. So now we're down to $217,000. So even though Velasco is paying us $600,000 to buy the house, by the time we pay those two people and we pay the attorneys and all that, we may be clear like $200,000 or $195,000 on the $600,000 because of those liens, that first lien mortgage, the second lien mortgage. So it's somebody's stake in your asset.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So what else we got? Because we're talking about deal structures and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about what we're doing with ComeCorrect Consulting and how that translates to deals and creating deals and following them through.
Absolutely. Well, please know that our largest fiduciary responsibility is to our investors and the Scooters Coffee. So Scooters is our number one. That's how we're making money. But Scooters is probably further, although it's the largest investment and it's going to pay the biggest returns from a monetization standpoint, we're talking third quarter, fourth quarter before we start to see revenue. Whereas we have the skill set in commercial lending that we can deploy today. So we're not necessarily taking our eye off the ball. We're just maximizing our time and our resources. So that is brokering deals. Used to be when I worked for B1 Bank, when I worked for Truist Bank, that I could only do broker their deals, the deals that they like. Now I have resources to broker a lot of stuff. So when you have deal structure is a relationship and experience thing. 14 years banking, 7 years of that is retail. I didn't have the experience to broker a commercial deal after 7 years. After 8 years, I didn't have the experience because I was a brand new commercial lender. After 9, 10, after maybe 10, then I could understand the deal. I saw enough deals between the ones that I did and the ones that my teammates did, and understood, okay, this is a deal for XYZ. The purpose is you fight for your clients. Sometimes I fought too hard for my clients, but you got to know who can get a deal done and what makes sense. It's got to be a win for both people. So when you broker a deal, you're really brokering relationship. So we're going to have lunch today, and all the people at lunch, they know each other either indirectly, tangentially through me. Everybody knows me. And the purpose is I've seen a deal, I understand it enough to say, hey, this is the guy for that deal. And so when we broker that, there's a difference between referral and like a co-broker. A referral just says, hey, I heard Jay wants to buy this piece of real estate. That's all I know. Best of luck. Here's his name. And maybe you swing me a couple dollars as a result. You didn't really provide much value besides giving me maybe a hot lead, hopefully a hot lead. He's gonna pick up the phone when I call and know that he was why I'm calling, and then you take it from there. Versus a broker deal is that you have some understanding and know-how, deal structure. How are we gonna get repaid? That's the first thing people always forget. We get passionate about it. Those who are not in the space, the piece that they miss and don't understand is that at the end of the day, how are you gonna pay me? If you want me to give you $10 million, if you want me to give you $30 million, you got a $60 million transaction, you want me to finance 50% of it, and you can't define how I'm gonna get repaid, what in the hell do you think we're doing here? So, but I'm brokering my relationship because everybody's time is valuable. So at this lunch, if these folks find out that the person I try to point here is not the guy, he'll be like, next time, do I take Obi's call? Because he wasted my time with that last call. But I have a pretty good idea from our conversations, from listening to him, these are the type of deals he likes. This is the space, this is the size. Pretty good idea from listening to this guy, this is what he's trying to do, this is where his shortfall is. And it's funny. So there's gonna be 6 people at lunch today. 4 of them are really connected to me. There's one guy that's not. And his question was, is so-and-so that you're brokering me to or sending me to, is he real? Tell me what kind of deals he's closed. Why? Because he wants to know, is he gonna spend his time right? You know, because he's probably spent 9 months of his life focusing on getting this transaction done, and he's close to the finish line, but he's not there. So when you broker a deal, you're really brokering relationships. The only way you can broker those relationships is if you've got time in the seat. You have enough time and experience to know the fundamentals of a deal and what makes sense for a banking institution, what makes sense for private equity, like public financing, what makes sense for, hey, this is something that somebody's gonna take to the bond circuit. The hope is that I've sized, I have a good enough understanding that I've put the people in the right place. And when you broker a deal, you're gonna do some of the underwriting. So what an underwriter will want to know is, what's the structure? What's the ask? What do they want and why? Mm-hmm. How are they gonna repay it back? What's the primary source of repayment? Do we have a secondary source of repayment? Do we have collateral that's tangible? All right. Do we have sponsors with strength? What are the sponsors' experience? Do the sponsors have enough equity? If you're a good broker, you will at least answer some of those top line questions. There's gonna be more questions. Mm-hmm. All right, the guy selling in this particular case, there's a company being sold, but the people who own it and selling it, they're second generation. They don't wanna be salesmen, Jay. They wanna be operators. So they realize, here's our skill set. We know how to do this shit, but we don't wanna have to go to lunch with people and get new accounts and do all that. There's people who they don't like to do that kind of shit. And it's okay. They're like, I just want to be an operator. Great. That's what you're telling me. Is that really the case? That needs to be investigated, because what could be is that look, I just want to make this capital windfall, sell mommy's business, sell daddy's business.
Right.
And I'm about to hit the beach. I'm about to get this boat and I'm out. If we're relying on them to continue to operate the business and they're gone, that's going to be a problem. So you best believe the person that's going to give the money is going to want to know the answer to the question. What's going to hold them to still doing the business? And I ain't giving them all the cash up front. They got to get some earn out. Did you think about that in the structure? All right. What are you going to bring to the table? Do you know anything about this line of business as a person buying? You got to have somebody. All right. So I'm buying this business from Brock. If I bought Firebrand Media, I would be ill-equipped to buy it. Why? Not because I didn't have the money to buy it. I don't know how to manage these folks because I don't know enough about their business. Who would I bring on the team to know when they're feeding me a crock of shit or when they're telling me the truth that we need this piece of equipment? All those things, that's what a broker does. A refer just says, hey, Brock wants to sell his business. Good luck. And I want some money. The co-broker says, all right, what's the fee structure up front? Because your boy, who is it, Reginald Lewis, why should all the white guys have all the fun? You should read that book. But he was like, his mom taught him, set your deal up front. Set your expectations up front. So if I'm a broker, I'm gonna say, I asked the co-broker that's gonna sponsor the deal potentially, hey, what does compensation look like? So there's no confusion. We gotta sign an agreement together. This is what the points look like. Because what you don't wanna do is do a bunch of work to have an expectation, and Jay has a different expectation. Well, I appreciate it, but I was only gonna pay you X, Y, Z, or I wasn't gonna pay you at all. Oh, my fault for not setting the expectations
right
up front.
ahead of time.
But don't waste my time if you don't understand what you're bringing to me. So a broker understands what they're presenting to you. A refer just says, hey, I heard this is a good idea. Maybe you want to check it out.
So you do your due diligence ahead of time before even setting up that meeting to make sure that it makes sense because your reputation's on the line.
Yeah. What you don't want to do is, let's say you're having that initial call. The person is already sizing you up. So what you know, I send you a pitch deck and I ain't read the pitch deck. I don't even know what's in it. I should be able to at least, if I gave him something to read, I should know what I gave him to read. So if you send me the pitch deck and you don't know crap about what's in there, I'm like, and that's hard for a guy like me who doesn't like details, who has understanding from experience. I can dabble in a lot of things, but sometimes I don't slow down enough to dabble in the thing. So if you're gonna, but I do recognize if I want to engage somebody's time, I better go against my normal sensibility and dig into the. But the good thing for me is that I have the capability to dig in through experience, so I can look through a deck
what you're looking
fast
for.
and see like you can say you look at a deck, there's all this fluff here, fluff there, fluff there. Where's the balance sheet? Where's the income statement? Because I want to know how they made money historically. How do they project to make money now? How are they making money now? Who are their receivables right now? What's the viability of that guy paying them? All right. So I'm gonna go to that first, and then you tell me about the history and what you guys plan to do and why this. Everybody's gonna put why this shit is so good. When we made our pitch deck for scooters, we didn't say like, man, so and so takes like 3 years to call them back. We said all the good stuff. But there was a lot of good. The good thing for us is there was real receipts, a lot of good stuff. But in anything, there's stuff that's challenging. But we put all the good stuff. We didn't put like, man, that lady takes forever to qualify a site. No.
Right.
We'll figure out how to mitigate that.
You can put your best foot forward.
So they're gonna put their best foot forward. Read through the lines. All right. And when you can look at a balance sheet and say, that looks like there's something fishy there. Like if all of a sudden, sometimes people hide the level of payroll expense by making it as if that's a cost of goods sold. That ain't no cost of goods sold. That is, I need that personnel on my team. If that's true expense, don't try to lie to me and tell me that's not a true expense or something that I can, because people will say, oh, I've got these vendors and that vendor and I can save 3% on that area. No, you can't, because that person should have been on the SG&A side, not on the cost of goods sold side. It's somebody with experience that can read through that.
Can you tell me, before you move on from that, can you tell me about the stages of the deal? Like, so this stage is...
Yeah, so stage 1 through stage 4. Stage 1, now we've identified there's a deal. Stage 2, we put a structure. We know how we're going to get repaid. We know where there's collateral. We know what the sponsor's like. Stage 3, full underwriting. Stage 4, present a commitment letter and close the deal. It's interesting because in this particular lunch that we're going to, for some of the people, they're in stage 4. But for the guy that's just seeing the deal, he's in stage 1. But what he's expecting is that, Obi, you've done enough due diligence where like we understand there's a stage 2, there's a structure. I may disagree with the structure, but there better already be a structure in place. We already know how we're gonna get repaid and how this is gonna monetize. And then I'm gonna determine from this lunch, do I wanna go forward to determine if we're gonna take it to stage 3. We're gonna take this thing off.
Okay.
Yeah, they're giving us the time. We gotta get ready for this lunch, man. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to share. We're gonna definitely do some feedback afterwards, after lunch, to talk to the folks. But what I wanna do is help the audience understand that this money game is a tool. What do you wanna do and how do you wanna get there? That's all there is to it. Now, like a year ago, I would have been, the realtors for scooters presented a 1.5 acre lot, $840,000. Before I go, oh, that's too expensive. And now I'm like, oh no, I can just call so-and-so because we can put this facility on there and get rent from there. These people can bring us the capital. We'll have to take them on as partners, but we have a good relationship with. So now it's just about using the tool to put together the pieces to grow what we want to grow and what we know how to grow.
I think there's so much value in that. I think a lot of people don't recognize opportunities because they don't realize what tools are in place for them to make it happen. So it seems like
it's teamwork. It's teamwork. A lot, some of a lot versus all of a little. We think about a little. We think, I gotta do it myself. I gotta own everything. Yeah, and then you have a little. You just don't have the bandwidth that's by yourself in any capacity. Some people can have all the money in the world and don't have the time. They don't have the bandwidth. They need a team.
And that circles back to Field to the Boardroom because that's exactly what we're trying to create.
That's what we're curating at Field to the Boardroom is that, hey, wealth development is a team sport. Group economics is a real thing. It's necessary for our people to survive with our own voice. If we want to keep going the way we're going, where somebody else dictates our lives for us, we can do it by ourselves. If we want to have self-actualization and some determination in how we move about this world and doing what God has gifted us to do, then we're going to do it as a team. Come correct.
And they can't stop.
And they can't stop you.